Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is SockBot, and today I want to talk a little bit about the Homespace. Now, I know that this is a bit of a late video, and you may say, oh, well, why didn't you do this when the Homespace first came out? Well, I wanted to wait a little bit. I talked a little bit about this in my Dreams preview videos, like way back when, before Early Access was out, but I wanted to give the Homespace a little bit of time to mature, in the same way that I don't talk a lot about imps, because I know that there are certain things that Media Molecule has talked about bringing to the imps, namely customization of the imps, like individually, but that hasn't happened yet. And with Homespace, I think we're at the point right now where they added a handful of things right at the beginning, a bunch of different packs, and it's definitely different and more exciting than it was in the early access, but I think that there's still a lot more they can do here. And so this was sort of inspired because I was going to work on another video, but I ended up spending time finally customizing my own home space. And again, it's something I didn't do specifically because I thought we were going to get a lot more creativity here, and we haven't yet. But I still actually had a really, really good time with it, and I think that a lot of people will probably find that the home space customizations they've done, or ones that they could potentially do, could be a lot more creative than what a lot of people are saying online. And so that's something I want to talk about, and talk a little bit about the general response that I've seen on Reddit, some of the issues, but namely just kind of discuss the home space. So if you enjoy this sort of video, feel free to leave a like down below. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more, but no pressure as always. So starting with my experience, like I said, this is the first time that I've actually spent, customizing my own home space, other than the few things that you've probably seen in videos here and there, where I have just a couple different of the worms from my favorite level in the campaign. I haven't really taken the time to make it my own. And so this morning when I was working on this, all I really wanted to do was just create something that's unique, that's kind of fun to come into every day, and something that expresses the sort of home space I want, I guess. It's not super detailed, and it's nothing that I'm like crazy proud of or anything like that, but I figured it was time, especially if I'm going to be streaming and y'all are going to be seeing this more often. But I realized as I was going through this that I haven't talked about this subject yet, and so when I was looking on Reddit to see kind of what people were saying these days, and realizing that you still can't put custom objects in it for some reason, I kind of wanted to expand this into a whole video. So I looked a little bit to see what people were saying, and the fact that this entire home space hasn't changed much in, like, I guess over a year now. I wasn't surprised to see that people like Hipster Jesus 42 were saying that you still can add your own assets, but also that you still can add your own music or puppets, which is pretty surprising considering you can really only play as Connie as far as I can tell, or any of the other personalized puppets if you can add them. I should actually check that. I'll check that and put a little note here. But the fact that you can't really use any of your own stuff is very strange. Now, the home space is a wonderful idea, and I honestly think it's one of the coolest things you could have put into Dreams, namely because it just fits it so well. Like in Little Big Planet, when they were trying to, with Little Big Planet 3, and we know this now from a lot of the different dev files that we found, they were trying to make it so you could essentially build your own level that would be your pod. And so with Homespace, I think a lot of us, when it was sort of being discussed and when a lot of things were being promised, expected the same sort of customization for this that they were trying with Little Big Planet 2 and 3. And we didn't fully get that. And so I understand why people are frustrated. That being said, I also understand why a lot of people understand the limits and are more than happy to create something within their own assets and within the assets that were given. But what I don't fully understand is why the home space is so much different in terms of rules than creation. Now, it makes sense in Little Big Planet, for example, where you'd kind of have to code things differently to allow the player to modify things within their pod, especially because there were a lot of pod-specific assets and pod-specific logic that we didn't really have access to. But when it comes to home space, we can already put in all these objects that are available in every other mode, and so who's to say that we couldn't put our own objects in without a lot of effort? Now, again, I'm not a game programmer. I don't understand. There may be something here I might be missing, and I totally acknowledge that. But what's even stranger, and I'll get to my possible reason for this in a bit, but the thermometer within the home space has such a lower ceiling than the thermometer within a creation. And so that to me was like, okay, this must explain why we can't put more stuff in the home space. So I looked into it just to confirm that my suspicions were right, and they are. I went into a custom game and placed down essentially the same assets. Some of them I couldn't fully find because the search function is a little bit wonky right now with when you're trying to look for like the exact same media molecule asset. But I did manage to find just about everything except for the trees, and one of the tree assets that had a bunch of different types of trees put together in the same group. So I actually recreated that and then added a bunch of other random stuff to just kind of show you here that all of this stuff in here still does not account for the thermometer gain that I had on this versus my home space. In other words, my home space with far less individual assets than this and far more copies of the same assets that I was using is still so much lower or still so much higher percentage-wise in the home space than it is in the level. So we know that there's a lower thermometer ceiling, and we know that we're not allowed to put our custom assets in, so why is kind of where I'm left. Well, my best guess is for load times. Something that's really important and something that I know Sony has some regulatory control over is that every single game has to have some sort of limits with load times. Now, I know that Sony isn't super specific about this. There are games like Red Dead that take like 3 minutes to load, but I'm assuming that some sort of regulations around that, or more specifically, just some sort of personal desire from Media Molecule, has encouraged them to lower this thermometer ceiling and also limit it to these pre-made assets, which ideally would be optimized for low load times. And that's one of the reasons why the load time for Dreams is particularly quick. I mean, even when compared with Little Big Planet, it's pretty much on par. But there's a small issue here. The other people that were talking about this in Reddit are saying they keep hitting their limit too fast, but noting that these assets in this Reddit post that I'm talking about were just not very efficient. They do take up quite a lot of thermometer even within the regular game because you can further reduce their detail, and so that sort of explanation has a bit of a hole in it. And so I'm left in the sense that I'm happy I finally got to make my home space, and I'm happy that it's not quite as limiting as I sort of expected it to be, but I do still wonder, why is it not up to the player to decide how long they want their load time for the full game to be? It feels like it should be, and therefore anybody that decides to design their home space would kind of understand through create mode that adding more complicated assets, adding more individual assets that are not copied or duplicated off of anything else is going to drive your thermometer up and therefore going to drive the load time up. And so it should be on the player, really, but again, this comes back to Media Molecule having their own standards for load times and Sony having some sort of control over that sort of aspect of gameplay. Now, again, all of this is largely speculative. It's just me trying to explain why we have this issue and sort of give Media Molecule the benefit of the doubt. Because, obviously, here on my channel, I am very positive and I like to think about it that way. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think that this sort of limitations within the home space are as annoying as a few other people find them? Or are you kind of on the other side, which I can totally understand, where we have enough to work with and you can create stuff that's unique enough, so like there's got to be reasons there and they're not that important. Wherever you fall, feel free to talk about it in the comments down below. Regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed this shorter video, and I hope we can talk to each other again soon. But either way, talk to you guys in the next video. For now, goodbye everybody.